Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are on our live feed on Monday. Got a special set of folks with you today. We've lost our Paul, which is a bit sad. He is at a rollerblading tournament. He's competing as a alternative goaltender, and we'll be really happy to hear about that. But we've got Coach Dub filling in for him today. We've got Ian Boyd, and of course, our fearless Eric Nalin. We want to get into this as soon as we can, get into your questions. So we'll start with one of the questions on the board, which was which position group, if you were to rate them, and we'll start with you, Eric, if you were to rate our position groups from strength to weakness with this particular set of folks, where are you putting them? Who are you putting on the top?
Oh, man, yeah. So we started doing this offline, 15 minutes ago, and we rearranged it. Each of us rearranged it quite a bit. What we noticed is it's a very evenly talented, the talent distribution is pretty even across the board. So, I mean, there's a million different ways to argue this one. I've got edge number 1. I've got wide receiver number 2. I've got quarterback number 3. I've got cornerback with nickel. I've got to put Jahdae Barron in there as well, and Jalen Gilbo at 4. Offensive line at 5. Running back at 6. Defensive tackle at 7. Linebacker at 8. Safety at 9, and tight end at 10. But I mean, I pretty much hate the list already. Just reading it off like that.
Ian, any additions or subtractions you want to make to that?
Well, I have the right list right here, so I'll read you the right list.
The right list.
Okay. I got quarterback number 1, wide receiver number 2.
That's good.
Edge number 3, cornerback number 4, offensive line number 5, defensive tackle 6. Safety 7th. I don't feel great about that one. Tight end 8th, running back 9th, and inside linebacker 10th.
Coach, what is the composition of these lists? The fact that we're dealing with it in these order telling you?
That we got a balanced team, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
And which that's a good thing, because you got a good team. You can't find a hole, can't find a weakness.
So, Coach, we've got a question for you. This is one of our super chats. If you want to make sure that your question absolutely gets asked, I can't guarantee that it's going to be answered with any kind of competence, but we'll definitely ask the question. We've got our first one tonight from Brett Nelson. Brett is asking. Brett's a big fan. We love having Brett here, so thank you for that, Brett. So, Coach Williams, give me the top 3 DFW prospects that you've seen or heard of.
Are we going 2023 here? Or 2024? I'm sorry.
Let's go this next class. I'm assuming that's what Brett wants.
Well, it says ever seen. So top 3.
Ever seen. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So unfortunately, you got to throw Kyler Murray on there, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Kyler's gonna be number 1, right? That's an easy choice. I don't know. I would say BJ Johnson is gonna be my number 2. Yeah, he was that guy. And if I'm going number 3, I would go VY. There you go.
Wait, DFW.
It's DFW. He's Houston, man.
Oh, DFW. I'm sorry. I'll say ever seen. I'm a third.
This is a high pressure situation, Coach. I understand this is your first live, but you need to step it up a little bit.
Let me see, man. My DFW. Let me see.
This is like back in the day when you'd be at the Red Box and somebody would be behind you trying to get a movie, and you just
that's what it feels like, right?
as quick as possible.
I'm really trying to think here. That's tough because there's a lot of guys. Somebody's gonna be disappointed. So let's do this. Let's go the late Cedric Benson. How about that? No, DFW. Right. Good grief. He's not DFW. So. This is tough, man. Hold on now.
Hey, I hate these questions. When they get there, I try to get you off and running with Kyler. That's what I was doing there.
Kyler that's easy, right?
Yeah.
Kyler, then I go BJ. If I'm going third, let's think DFW though, man.
Just keep thinking about it. We won't end the show until you come up with it.
It's an hour-long show, Coach. You got loads of time.
William Cole from Cedar Hill. There we go.
Okay, great. I fully accept. What is the so this is the question we struck. Thank you again for that, Brett. That got us way more airtime than it probably deserved. So here's a question about our dime package. And I'm trying to understand the syntax of this question. Maybe you can help me out here, Ian. What is the ideal dime look for Texas? Blackwell is a linebacker?
The ideal dime look for Texas probably does not include Blackwell at any position.
Okay.
He's not sounded maybe kind of harsh. He's not amazing in coverage. And he's not one of the better blitzers. So there's just really no point. he may be a starter next year at one position or another, but if they're building a dime look, which they haven't really done before, to me and Paul's great consternation, it would be something like it might be like a 2-3-6, like 2 defensive tackles, because the defensive tackles are good pass rushers on this team. That's not like where the question marks are on defensive tackles, not pass rush. 2 edges, and then another linebacker, which would be Ant Hill, and then just another safety hanging around the box as a sort of pseudo linebacker. And who that would be, I actually don't really know who would fit well there.
Why don't you just play Derek Williams, Makuba, and Michael Taft back there at safety?
There you go.
And leave Ja'Day Barron at nickel.
Yeah, somebody's got to drop in the box. I'm not sure who that'd be. Maybe it would just be all of them at one point or another. Honestly, though, they probably won't do it anyway, or they would have done it before.
I can see why I mentioned Maurice Blackwell, because he's trying to get sort of versatile pieces out there, which is Maurice is kind of known for, but he's known for that more because his body type is more of a tweener, but he's actually more of a linebacker than he is a safety. He had trouble in coverage as a safety, which is why they moved him back to linebacker. He's got a linebacker disposition. He doesn't know that he's 210 pounds. He doesn't play like he's 210 pounds. And so it's counterintuitive. Most times you see a guy that's a converted safety, you would say, hey, dime would be a good fit. Obviously, that worked well for DeMarvion Overshown for a year or so. But that's not exactly his skill set.
Right.
Moving on to the infinite knowledge of the NCAA, we've got some news coming out that they are considering moving signing day up until, I believe it's early December. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, the Wednesday before the conference championships in December, which is equally bad time.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, I mean, why don't, and this is a little bit more of a bigger scale question, but why don't they just have year-round signing day? Why can't the kid just sign when he wants to sign and then it's a done deal?
Well, I mean, I have thoughts on that. And, obviously there's a lot of me that believes in personal freedom of doing stuff like that. At the same time, man, that is going to get tricky because those kids are going to get a letter of intent put in front of them while they're on campuses. There's a lot of adults that get taken over the rail, raked over the coals buying a new car. Now you got to add, think about them being a 17-year-old kid with these guys that have these refined sales pitches. Man, there's going to be a lot of poorly thought out decisions if it goes down like that. I mean, it's setting up the kid to be made a victim. And I don't think people have thought it all the way through. These guys are going to be pitching them very hard on campus with an LOI right in front of them. They're going to have a guy from the collective showing them whatever that collective has to offer. And you're going to see a lot of kids making quick decisions that weren't all the way thought through.
You could see like some of the smaller schools, to Eric's point, are really good at getting in on a kid early and getting them committed. Like say like a Western Michigan when PJ Fleck was there, or whatever, Oklahoma State. You can just easily imagine a kid like he's blowing up for the first time. He gets like a great offer from Oklahoma State or Western Michigan, whatever.
Texas Tech would be a good one.
Texas Tech, yeah, awesome. But he's like a sophomore. And then he really blows up. And then now it's like, oh, I could have signed with Auburn. I could have signed with Alabama, Texas, whatever. I could have been making way more money, could have gotten a total. And I just was excited as a 16-year-old. I had no idea that football was going to have so much to offer me. And now I'm like locked in, So LC, your idea is just terrible.
Yeah, no, I gathered that.
Charlie, what do you think?
Yeah, here's my thing. It's going to hurt the kids, and you still got to deal with the portal kids on top of that. So it may help the group of 5 schools, right? It'll help the schools itself, but it's going to hurt the kids because those kids who could have went to Texas or somebody, they're going to fall to a UNT just because. I mean, it's the best offer at the time. I'm just throwing it out there because it's so cool, but they're pretty early on guys, right, in the DFW area before they blow up. So it's kind of like, okay, I got this kid now before Texas or somebody jumped on him, and they have to sign because they don't think they're going to get that Texas offer instead of waiting for it. So
Charlie, what is the solution then, Coach? I mean, you've been around this a long time, especially from the kids' perspective. What's an ideal situation for the kids in this spot?
I make it in January, right? Because those kids still want to enroll early. Make it just in January. It used to be in February. Make it in January for the kids who want to enroll early. That's what I would do for football. Honestly, just make it 1 month. Everybody sign on the same day. Either you roll in January or enroll in June. So just make it all at one time.
See, I like August. A lot of kids like to get it done and finalized for their senior season and worry about that. I think I would do it. They can still commit, obviously, in August, either under Charlie's plan. But I would like having it done. If I was a head coach, college coach, I would want them locked up in August. And there's a lot of kids that have enough information as long as they can get out. If the head coach, there's coaching carousel is always going to factor in. As long as they still have that out card, I would do August and then another one in February.
They can always
maybe January for the early enrollees.
They can always transfer now immediately anyway before they even enroll, like Xavier Worthy or Julian Sayin recently. So
yeah,
they're not unprotected.
Right.
So, Coach, this is a serious question that I want you to consider. I'm not going to put it on the screen, frankly, because it's a paragraph long. But the objective is this. Why don't we do a short yard package, teach Kelvin Banks to take a straight handoff and let him run tailback blast from the power I with two of the biggest, meanest D tackles we've got? How do you feel about that?
Somebody's been watching a lot of UNLV tape, right? Well, that's what that is. We call that package Godzilla. Actually ran that. So, yeah, you have to go back and look at a couple games, but it worked in short yardage. And
how effective was that?
I want to say we scored three out of 3 times on it. So
I would say that's relatively effective then. Yeah, all right. How far out? What's the furthest out you were when you ran that?
12-yard line.
12 yards? Okay.
Yeah.
I need to go look that up now.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that.
Wyoming or one of those teams.
Wyoming, okay. I'm going to look that up later.
Yeah.
What is so let's talk a little bit. What are our thoughts on Lance Jackson making a huge jump in the on 300?
Hey, it had to happen. I was celebrating that guy committing. The article I wrote when he committed was about it was not going to receive enough fanfare because he's committing so early. Kind of happened quick. There wasn't a huge buildup. Texas wasn't really holding off a heated rival. Like the hype really drives some of those the perceived value of some of these guys up when you're beating A&M for a kid or OU for a kid. So I think he went underappreciated just based off that, but he's an absolute stud. Back in the fall, I wrote, 10 favorite guys in the class. He was one of them. I didn't care if he was at edge or tight end. He's that good. So I think that, on 3 just finally caught up to what I thought. And I think the rest of the industry's behind on it, but that kid's a total beast. I mean, I can make a case for him being a 5-star and like I said, when they got that commitment, he's going to be one of the 5 best players in the class. So people need to celebrate it accordingly. How does
an affiliation with On3 work in terms of the way that we work? Do they listen at all to us and our opinions on these kids?
I think sometimes I can tell that they've read our work. They'll say something that's quite similar. Maybe that's coincidence or not. Normally they'll just ask us to forward kids. I'll send a couple kids a week, usually if I come across them. Normally it's a kid in a class or 2 ahead. Right. They don't solicit our opinion on rankings, which I think Inside Texas wishes they would a little bit more, but that's a tough job to do. You're never going to please everybody. You're going to be hated by every fan base because even if you get one guy right, the next guy you might get wrong. I mean, it's a thankless job for sure.
The Aggies definitely think that Inside Texas just creates all the rankings for On3.
and our guys are always taking a bath. They're always dropping in the On3 rankings. Arch was the number 1 player forever, and then at the last minute he was like number 2 or 3,
right?
Which I thought was ridiculous. Arch, if anything, Arch got better his senior year. His one question going into in that season was, is his arm strength going to come around? Which I knew it would, and of course it did. His arm strength is never in question anymore. So I don't know, man. Rankings are funny. I like them because I try to, there's nothing but truth in evaluation. They don't care about whether or not I like the kid. They don't care about whether or not I dislike the kid. It's just about what's on the tape, what I heard from behind the scenes on the kid. Is he going to work hard? Is he a maximizer? If he's not going to maximize, then he's going to get dinged. If I don't think he has a good fit, He's going to get dinged there. If I think he's going to a school that isn't going to develop him, he's going to get dinged on that. But then the flip side happens. A lot of guys make really good decisions, and that should be reflected in the rankings.
I want to transition a little bit back to our friends over the NCAA. As some of you that may know that are following this at home, there has been an injunction. There's an NIL deal basically going on between the NCAA and the University of Tennessee, wherein the NCAA has basically squandered any opportunity to have any sort of legislative and or jurisdiction over this NIL thing. So they've sued essentially, and there's been an injunction that's happening right now. And what's really fun about this, and I want to read this quote. This is from our NCAA president, former governor of Massachusetts. And I'm going to take this massive paragraph and really condense it down to the final sentence, where he says, "We will get back to you on the ruling shortly." I find this to be amazing that in spite of all of the things that are going on, the NCAA seems to just keep pushing it down the road. This is not a new thing for them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, where you think, and this is all speculation, guys, but where do you see this going?
Ooh, any lawyers here? Yeah. As far as Texas goes and the new NIL thing, I don't think anything's going to change in the immediate. Texas still has its state laws to adhere to, at least in theory. I don't think as W.W. McClyde on the board, who has read all the legislation for some reason, that guy he's a bit of a sicko if you're going to sit down and read all that legalese. Of course, he's a lawyer. Apparently, there's no arm for Texas to be punished if they do start negotiating with kids directly. But that doesn't sound like the Texas I know. The Texas I know cares about optics still to the degree that they're going to follow the rules, even if they aren't going to get punished for not. But Texas is going to want to wait till the last minute, like it always has, when to broach the NIL question. And the reason they do that is because they think it helps their selection process of finding kids that are going to Texas for the right reasons rather than just the cash grab. Cash grab kids might not have the motivation you're looking for. It goes back to what we were just talking about in the evaluation process, whether or not they're going to maximize. So they really like money to be kind of the final thing that ever gets brought up. Every once in a while you hear about a kid, learning about a little quicker, but normally that's a player that's quite motivated to get to the NFL and really make money. But for the most part, they don't want to mess up their selection process, which, if you start talking about money, right? Imagine trying to find a woman and the first thing you do, or the first thing she asks you at the bar, this has happened to all of us men, I'm sure, is, what do you do for a living? When you're 23 years old, it's going to sound a lot different than when you're 45 years old or whatever, or 50, so that you're going to get married for the wrong reasons if that's not a deal breaker for you. And so they're looking for things that aren't deal breakers.
Right. Ian, is there anything you want to elaborate or add to talking to women at bars?
I have so very little to offer there.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Let's just go back to Brett Nelson there. He's providing us an ample amount of content that we can talk to. Is the 2025 team still seen as having a higher ceiling than this year's team?
Boy.
Maybe. I mean, with the portal, it's hard to tell.
Right.
Between now and then, they could add the best wide receiver in the country in the transfer portal and the best, lineman or cornerback or something, and then maybe Arch Manning played in 3 games and looks amazing. It's hard to. It's for sure 2025 is no longer so much the year that we're looking forward to because Quinn Ewers is back. We all thought for a long time that it'd be like take a couple lumps with Arch Manning in year 1 in 2024, and then go at it in 2025 with a veteran Arch and a really veteran line and whatever. But now between Quinn coming back and a couple portal maneuvers and other, Alfred Collins coming back and Jahdae Barron coming back, it's different ballgame.
Yeah, NIL and the portal can help you fix your roster cycle in a hurry. And so 2025 looked like the year a year ago, but then look at everything that happened in December, and with each of those moves, it was really catching my attention. Like, oh man, they're building to win it next year too. And so, 25 was kind of viewed as the season based on the recruiting roster cycles, loading up in 2022, 2023. But now because of the portal and NIL, it's it's pretty much going to be every year. They're definitely in the championship window for the next 3 seasons.
Well, do you feel, and this is a question for you, Coach, how and Arch is a unique player, a player that's been able to develop, staying on even on the sidelines, not getting much game time. How much of an advantage is that going to be for him going in and starting? Or is it really going to be an issue of he's just got to get that game speed down?
I'm gonna say this: no matter how good he is, developing, getting all the extra practice reps in, nothing substitute for real live game reps, right? And I think we saw a little glimpse of that when he got in. Missed on a couple of throws, but it looked good. He made the right decisions. It looked like he was making the right decisions. He took off and ran when he needed to. So I think he just needs more game reps. No matter how much we hear about him behind the scenes, or he's getting to work back at home. Nothing substitutes playing. So
right.
We'll see when he's actually thrown out there, how he looks when people are actually game planning versus him and, really studying tape on him. Let's see.
2025 seems to be a popular topic in the chat. We're going to go to Jeff here, and he's curious about the 2025 schedule. Is it going to be flipped version of 24? And I'm not entirely sure. I don't believe this year's schedule, with the exception of Michigan, maybe, is home and home. Is it when it gets into the league?
Oh man, I've got to look at the schedule for that.
I'm trying to find it right now. I don't necessarily think it's a flip version.
I don't have it memorized. I know they go to obviously the Red River Shootout, and then Georgia's at home, and then where do they go after that? I was looking at it today too.
I think it might be.
They go to Vanderbilt after. They go to Vanderbilt after having Georgia at home.
Oh, I think what he's talking about is the schedule after this year. Is it going to flip over?
Oh no, I don't think so.
No, I think it's a brand new.
No, they're going to play. There's going to be some overlap. I believe they will play A&M. They'll get A&M at home in 2025. There's going to be some overlap, but I don't think it's going to be completely overlapping.
Again, sticking with 2025, this is more on the recruiting side. Who are the can't miss 25 offensive and defensive recruits?
Well, I think the Corian Moores can't miss at wide receiver. We were having a chat about it today. Some of the Duncanville players haven't necessarily panned out. Wide receiver is a pretty easy position to pan out, especially if you go to a school that's got a great track record of it. Just elite. He's got elite skills. You can see him. He's got, he's not quite as fast as Xavier Worthy, but he's nearly as fast. But he's just got better soft skills. He's got better ball skills, better hands. And I think he's shiftier after the catch. Maybe not straight line speed that Xavier has, but very few have that. So to me, he's can't miss. At defense, I've got my guy Zion Williams. He's not rated all that highly. I don't quite get that one. But when I look at a big defensive lineman, I want to see that he's got the mental side there too, because the bigger you are, the harder football is to play. And so he's big and he's got the mental side down. I think he's got a very high ceiling as far as playing interior defensive line. Probably a one tech, even though he doesn't want to hear that. But you like that, he's going to try to stay lean and trim and continue to keep his athleticism and play 3 tech. So I think Zion is probably the most underrated player in the state. I have to think about that. I'm sure there's some others. But then obviously everybody knows Decorian Moore if you follow recruiting.
Agreed.
Anything you'd want to add to that, Coach?
I would definitely went Decorian Moore, man. For my offensive pick, can't miss receiver.
What's special about Moore?
Moore has all. He has a package from releases to speed, catching the ball with his hands. Knowing when to sit down in zone, like that's very hard to do at a guy for his age, right? Knowing when to slow down and kind of let the defense dictate, move past you and sit in that zone, right, and get in that window. But he just does it all, and a lot of things you have to learn once you get to the next level. He already has it.
Do you have a defensive guy, Coach? I mean, you haven't been fully immersed in this recruiting cycle all that long, but I know you've seen Riley Pettijohn, I believe. And is there any guys that you see as can't miss on defense?
I would have went Riley or Dylan Battle. I like Battle a lot. I like big guys in the trenches, honestly, because they affect the game before everybody else. So yeah. I would like Dylan Battle, but I like Riley Pettijohn a lot. I think he can do it all. I don't think he has to come off the field at all. He can play all 3 downs, cover, stuff to run, whatever you need him to do. So anybody that plays in the box, that's my pick.
The big guys are also a priority in high school recruiting because they're not as abundant in the transfer portal.
Right.
Everybody snatches them up out of high school because they're big and they're obvious.
Yep.
But LC, future class, I'm not sure. I don't want to do the math right now. Currently only in second grade, but there's going to be a Central Texas quarterback that showed a great knack in timing routes today
Ooh,
at the park in Michigan.
Great.
He may top out at about 5'9", 145 as a senior. We'll see how that goes, but
Okay.
stay
I wish
tuned.
Paul was here because his immediate question would be, how can we tamper? Do you have any insight on how we might be able to tamper with that player?
I might know a guy.
Okay, great. And what kind of incentives is this kid looking for? Cookies, snacks, Rice Krispie treats?
Actually, he's pretty persnickety.
Oh, that I don't doubt.
Well, it's going to take the right package to get that lined up.
Fair
No
enough.
cheese, nothing with cheese.
Nothing with cheese.
Unless-
Okay, good.
unless
So it's
it's pizza.
lactose intolerant, all-star quarterback. Coach, I've got a question for you. What are when you're looking at spring ball, and I know we are months away from spring ball, but it's what people like to talk about in the doldrums here. What are some, if you're in the coaching room, what are 3 things that you just have to get done during spring ball, or else your season is ruined?
Install of the playbook, and I know it may sound early, but that's really when you're able to see who's able to grasp the playbook and see what they know. So you see how much you can add on going into summer and fall camp. Who your competitors are, who's the guys that are going to compete, or who your leaders are, right? That's important because you need to know who's going to lead the team, because every year, every team is different. It's a new team every year. So you got to find out who your leaders are. And the third thing is who can be consistent. That determines, to me, well, and the coaching staff, you start setting your depth chart in the spring, if you ask me. You really do, because you know who you can count on and off the field. And so those 3 things to me are very, very important.
If you had to pick a couple players, and I'm just throwing you in the spot here, Eric, 1 or 2 that you see making a massive jump on the depth chart in spring ball.
Well, Dre Bledsoe, he's kind of getting it by, attrition with the guys ahead of him, but he's going to earn the playing time too. Every time we talk to sources about the team, who they're excited about, Dre Bledsoe is always mentioned. Warren Roberson is always mentioned too, just because he's such a dog. Both those guys are dogs. I put it in my notes. Somebody asked me today, the five toughest players, the five most dogged guys on the team. Those 2 will definitely make it. I'm gonna figure out their other 3 after talking to some people, but both those guys have elite athleticism, and they also have that football mentality out on the field. They could maybe be a little more consistent, like what Coach is just talking about. A lot of it boils down to reliability with coaches. They want to know who they can trust in the fourth quarter. They're not going to jump off sides or get a bad penalty. Those are 2 right there that jump out to me that have a chance to, like, if they had to start Warren Roberson this year, they'd feel perfectly fine about it. And the same goes with Dre Bledsoe, and those guys barely saw the field last year.
Eric, where would he play if he had to start?
Roberson's at corner.
Yeah, so
he's going to back up Brooks. Gavin Holmes, I think he's going to back up Brooks. Yeah.
Ian, this is something that we've talked about, but I want to have this conversation a little bit redundantly, or again, rather, now that we've got Coach on. You've been talking to us a lot about moving to more single high and those specific schemes. What do you see? How do you see that manifesting itself in the spring? Do you see them finally getting to that point? We've seen, hints of it moving forward, and it's obviously a scheme they want to move to more frequently.
They have to. The spring is where you have to do that. You got to find out, can we pull this off? Does this set us back too far if we try to make this? I mean, they have single high schemes anyway. They're going to play a role. But if you're talking about, like, this is going to be our mainstay next season, instead of the 2 high quarter stuff that's the primary coverage package right now, then they have to be, at the very least, they have to experiment a lot with it in spring, and probably they have to install it wholesale. Coach, I would really like to hear what Coach has to say about this.
Yeah, I think if they go to it, you got to allow your corners to play to their strengths, right? You can't teach everybody to play the same technique. Every corner is different. They have different abilities. So if you're going to switch to that, let these corners play to their strengths and teach them to that, right? You can't just teach them all the same. I think it allows you to stop the run because you're losing Sweat and you're losing Murphy. So it puts an extra guy in the box. But you're going to let them be aggressive at the line of scrimmage and be more of attack up front. Let everybody attack, right? I know it's kind of like everybody plays a gap, two gap, and sometimes let everybody attack. If you're going to install it in the spring, like N said, and then let them get comfortable playing it so that they gain confidence throughout the spring. And they're going against a good group of guys on offense that can really test them and get them better. So, yeah, install it in the spring and let them compete at it, and then teach them to their strengths.
So coach sounds like coach is almost more saying like you got to commit now, so that you can fine tune it.
You do. That's the only way. I wouldn't do it in the summer.
We'll find out. We'll find out what they. Well, maybe we won't find out because they tend to be pretty secretive when they make big changes like that. But
I just took a note to find out which guys are better in man and which guys are better in zone. We'll just kind of go down the list and see what we find out and see if they kind of build around that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's. There's a question about our interior D line, and there's actually two different questions relating to the same thing. Victor's a little bit worried about the interior line, especially with Sweat and Murphy gone. Are there any updates from the team side on Sadir? I know he is obviously a New Jersey native. It's the Garden State, so he's probably going to be wearing a lot of black leather during the game. So is that going to slow him down? What do we see from Sadir going into this?
Well, his mullet's coming in nicely.
Naturally.
The New Jersey Turnpike, whatever.
Yeah, it's NJT.
He's right on time. He's not an immediate impact guy. That's why, I think expectations were a little too high from him. Everybody's excited to beat Georgia for him coming out of high school. That's going to add a lot of that's going to build up his reputation. But, he's right on time. He's going to be counted on for snaps this season. I don't think he's going to take on a starring role, but I think he's going to play well. I think the guy I'm really watching to possibly become that one technique will be Tia Savea. He's working really hard. He's doing all kinds. He's impressing people in the weight room with his strength. Obviously, you've got to have good lower body strength to survive down there, especially if you're on the smaller side. He's 305. We can debate whether or not that's small these days. But I think Tia Savea is going to end up being the starter just based on what I'm hearing right now. But Sadir's going to play, and I think that 2025. When I was looking at the roster cycle before and talking about it, a guy like Sadir Mitchell in year number 3 is a big reason why I was looking at 2025. Anthony Hill is his third year in linebacker. I mean, these guys are going to be absolute monsters. Malik Muhammad is his third year at corners. He's going to be a stud. But Sadir's going to be pretty good this season, I think. But we'll see. They don't seem too worried about it. Obviously, if one of those Michigan guys went in the portal, all hell would break loose. Everybody would be going after those guys. But it seems like the Michigan folks they've got that figured out.
I mean, this is a popular question about our Michigan D line opportunities. I mean, this is I can take this away from you, Eric, so you don't have to answer the same question over and over. But please, you can validate this or not. But we're very much in a wait and see position right here, right? There's no real inside track as to whether any of those guys are jumping in, or am I way off?
Well, it seems like the Michigan side. It seems like they figured it out on the NIL, or at least they're starting to figure it out on NIL. And so, those guys probably won't leave if they don't need to. If it financially makes sense for them to stick around, they'll probably stick it out with their teammates and the new coaching staff, having continuity, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I think, having the head coach a familiar voice, I think that helps keep guys bought in. But we'll see. I mean, you never know. You could hear that they're coming back, and then the next day they're in the portal. So we'll see it. April 15th, I think that thing opens back up. It's going to be interesting because the SEC will be an absolute feeding frenzy for those guys, because the SEC cannot take interconference transfers, so they have to look outside. So that'll drive the market even more.
It's possible on the Michigan side that Harbaugh's departure actually opened the door for some beneficial
NIL modernization.
Yeah.
No
That
doubt about it.
Yeah, that was handled deftly. I think you guys did a good job of talking around the corners there. Let's talk Manny a little bit in that secondary. We were talking earlier about our zone and man coverages a little bit. How are we feeling about Manny? Obviously Eric just alluded to him. He may be a year away from being an absolute monster. What are our thoughts? You're with it, Coach. You're now good to go.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think his strengths are he's able to mirror. He has an array of techniques that he can use at the line of scrimmage. If he's going to double hand jam you, bull rush you, stab, mirror you, he has it all. He understands what catch technique is, and he's able to move his feet and get in front of the receiver without, grabbing him. And so he does a lot of things well. I think it's more about just grasping the game, right? Playing more, getting more reps and seeing more things, when people run different concepts at him. But as far as getting out there playing man, like he has it all. He has all the tools, man.
Yeah, they have him at boundary because that position they require you to process a little bit more, and he was the guy that they put there. So as a true freshman, so he's going to be a stud. I say he's going to be a stud in 2 years. He's going to be good next year too. He's probably a 3-year player, but that's a guy that takes football very seriously. Treats his body right. It's a full-time job for him.
I kind of like him in single high zone too. He's got a little digs in him where he's really good off the ball and adjusting. I believe, is he the guy that almost broke up that touchdown pass where against Washington where the ball fluttered and then the guy he came off his man on the sideline to pick that route up and deflected it. It was almost a really good play by him. He's really good in some of those. He's pretty versatile, but I really like him when he can kind of play back a little bit.
This is a question to Ian, and Coach, please feel free to jump in. But are there any specific X and O challenges against the SEC that wouldn't have necessarily manifested themselves in the Big 12?
Well, it's actually more of a spread league than the Big 12 is now. And some of the nastier spread styles and coordinators are actually in the SEC. So there's Levy, who gave Texas some trouble last year. There's Josh Heupel, who runs the similar system. There's Lane Kiffin that runs that system. Kalen DeBoer now is a schematic problem, obviously, and he's in the SEC. So they've kind of slowly started to pool a lot of the better offensive coaches. For a year, everybody was just trying to be Alabama and trying to out Alabama, trying to out Saban, and that didn't work out for anybody except Georgia. And now he's gone. So there's a lot more offensive innovation in that league now. Some of the problems that Texas has had in the Big 12 in the last decade are going to be they will need answers for them in the SEC.
Coach?
I feel like it's a copycat league. Everybody tries to copy what somebody does, right? So if the Big 12, they see what Texas struggles against in the Big 12, they're going to try to apply it in the SEC, right?
Sure.
I'm sure next year we'll see an array of teams run 3 high safety look or give that umbrella look from an X to O point. They're going to try to steal that defense and run it. So I really just depends because some of those coaches from the SEC previously in the Big 12, they all changed teams like these kids are hitting the portal. So I think you'll just see a copycat of what the Big 12 done, all the successful teams, and try to apply it and use it against Texas. But
is this from the spread perspective? Is that a reason to focus more on a single high man coverage, knowing what they're going into, or is that just playing to the roster we have?
It kind of plays to PK and Nanson's strengths up front, because both of those guys have done a lot of their best work with what you do up front is determined by what's happening behind you. The most important thing for a defensive structure is how you're covering. And then from there, that dictates how you pressure the quarterback, how you stop the run. Everything else comes from how you're handling, keeping guys out of the end zone. So I think PK and then incoming co-defensive coordinator Nansen are more comfortable working with single high. So I think that's why it would be potentially a good move for Texas. Single high versus quarters versus the spread. They both have strengths and weaknesses. Quarters is really popular for a reason. Yeah, I don't know if I would say one is necessarily better than the other, even for this roster, other than just what the coaches are going to optimize. Coach?
I really think so it goes by the roster, right? Your strengths. What are they good at? I think you run mostly of that, whatever they're good at. But you got to be able to mix it up. So I think you'll probably see a blend of match quarters and man, single high safety. You may get some Tampa 2 in there. You never know. We ran a lot of that in the playoffs against Washington. We went to a Tampa 2 look a lot. Most people may not realize, but we ran a lot of Tampa 2. And so maybe playing with that, who knows?
Let's say they have a single high safety. Who do you guys have back there?
I mean,
huh?
I'm going Tap. I'm going Michael.
Yeah.
I think Taff is. See, I think Taff is. Do you
Love
go with the blazing athlete or the guy that processes like an upperclassman? I think if you go Makuba, you kind of get a little bit more of that athleticism and also that processing. I'm not sure.
He can cover in man, though, is the thing.
Which one's he? Sorry.
If Taff is on the field,
Makuba.
then you want Taff as the post safety so that Makuba is the guy that's in man.
That makes sense.
But Taff, I'm sure we're going to see plenty of Taff next year, but the way things are going, we don't know if he's going to start because some of these other guys are so talented.
Yeah. He's going to play a lot, but I'm not sure if he'll start either.
Yeah.
I feel like that guy keeps Vegas in business. Everybody bets against that kid. I mean, he's always playing in the fields. I totally get it. And staying in the secondary, have we added? I think I know the answer to this. We haven't added any assistants or the staff to help out Joseph and Gideon, have we?
Well, then none that have stuck.
Yeah,
right.
They are too. Yeah, I've got good news and bad news.
Right. We're really committed to doing this. We just can't seem to keep them.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I haven't heard any new DB assistants. That's something for me to check once a week, but I haven't heard of it.
All right, guys, it is 41 past our hour. We want to appreciate all of y'all stepping in. If you don't have any more questions, I'm not going to cut off Ian tonight. For those of you that are playing at home, it's just not a nice thing to do. But it is good to know. Does anybody have any closing thoughts? Nope. Everybody's good. All right. From all of us here, we thank you very much.